Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason, and I'll be your presenter today for the online registration webinar in TeacherEase and SchoolInsight. As you can probably see from my screen, we have a couple of things we'll talk about first, and then we'll dive right in. This morning's agenda is this brief introduction, and then we'll be talking about two main sequences for online registration. First, we'll discuss new family registration, the setup, how new families register within your school district, and then how we review that information. And then following on that, existing family registration, the setup, registration process for those families, and then reviewing the data after those families have registered. At any point in time, either during or after the webinar, you can reach us at support@common-goal.com. You can also call our support line directly at 630-592-4200, extension 2. Now, one last thing before we begin our online registration discussion this morning, we'll need to make sure that all of your students have been rolled over into the new academic year. Online registration typically takes place in anticipation of the upcoming year. We held a webinar for this not too long ago. If you'd like to view that webinar, go to this address right here, www.teacherease.com/webinars. Also from the page before you log in, if you hover over Company at the very top and click on Webinars, it'll be in the upper right-hand corner. That being said, let's jump right in, and we're going to start with how do we set up new family registration. For this, I'm going to log in as a school admin at my sample school. Registration can be handled at either a district level or at the school admin level. If you handle it at the district level, that means that all forms and fields and everything will be created district-wide. If you instead create it one at a time for the schools, we would handle it that way instead. I'm going to set up my registration today from the district level. At the district level, you'll go under Modules and Tools to Online Registration. Make sure you are in the future academic year. I'll be working in 18-19 today. We're going to start off with options, and we're going to discuss some of the setup options here. At my school district, online registration is managed at the district level, so you can see that's set here. I allow parents to view or pay fees as a portion of online registration. We allow online payment of fees through a company called WePay. For more information about that, please contact our support line to set up an appointment to configure that if you haven't already. I enable calculation of registration fees during online registration. What that means is that I allow the fees to automatically be calculated and applied to students once they are being registered. If you offer registration fee waivers, for example, my school district allows fee waivers to be set up using the student's free and reduced lunch program. You can also choose to issue registration waivers to additional children. If after the, for example, third child, you'll give a waived price to fourth and beyond, you can set that up here. Will you allow deposits to the student lunch account during registration? This is separate from any registration fees you may be charging. Will you require parents to pay the existing balance in addition to any registration fees? What this means is if a parent has a current balance in the 17-18 academic year, are you going to require them to pay off that balance while they're paying registration, or will you leave that balance alone? And then finally, will you allow new student registration? So I've turned on new student registration for right now. We're going to move past the school options. We'll come back to that later when we're setting up returning student registration. And we're going to talk about new registration approval. So my sample administrator is set to receive notification emails once a new family has registered. And the new families will register by following this link. And now this link will be customized and independent for each individual school district. So this is the one for my district, not necessarily for yours. When you are looking for yours, you'll go in here to district registration options, scroll all the way to the bottom. This link can be emailed or posted directly on your school's website. Once we have these options set up, let's take a look at what it looks like when a new family would come in and register. So I'm going to jump over to another window real quick here. And this is the new family registration page. So if a new family has moved to your district and they don't have any students currently attending, they would be able to register here. So if a new student is coming to register for my elementary school this year, for example, and they are a brand new second grader, we can put in that student's name. You can also add additional students, but we're going to say Johnny's an only child for right now. And we'll continue on to the next step. In the next step here, we need a custodial parent or guardian. So we'll have Johnny's dad, Jim, and Jim needs to have an email address so that we can email him a follow-up to this part of the process. Jim is Johnny's dad. You can also collect a phone number at this point. It's not required. You can also add additional parents, so I'm just putting Jim in for right now, but we could also add Johnny's mom if we were so inclined. And then the parent is going to confirm their information, that they've put in their student, little Johnny, who's going to be joining us in second grade, and that they have put in their first and last name and an email address. Once the parent clicks confirm and submit, they will automatically be sent an email, and this email will notify them that they have begun the registration process and an admin at the school will have to review it. Clicking OK takes them back to the very beginning here, so they don't need to do it again. And now we'll jump back and see what it is that the admin sees. So the admin will also receive an update email that basically says a new family has registered at your school and you'll need to come in and check their information. So from the online registration page, under Daily Work, you would go to Process New Families, and you'll see that we have this new family that is requested to join your school district. And at the right side here, you'll see that it's for the 18-19, the upcoming academic year. And you can either approve this request or decline it. If you decline the request, the parent will be sent an email saying that they've not been approved to join your school district, and it will not create any new students or contacts. If you approve this, as we're about to, then young Johnny will be added to our elementary school, and a follow-up email will be sent to Johnny's father, Jim, with a link on how to log in. When the parent receives this email, there will be a link inside the email that they can click on. I'm just going to copy and paste it in here for right now so I don't lose my place. And when they click on that link, they'll be allowed to set a new password for their account. And once they do so, they'll be prompted to log in just like every other parent. So at this point, we're going to jump back over to the admin setup for online registration, because the process here for new families is going to be exactly the same process for existing families. So if I go back out here, and we're going to discuss the continued setup of the online registration process. So after we've set our options, we're going to registration process. And in the registration process, you'll see that in this upcoming academic year, 18-19, I already have a few things set up. I have my online registration form, I have a student handbook that the parents will need to download, and then I have a final step that parents will need to pay their registration fees. The first thing we're going to talk about is setting up the online registration form. On the right-hand side here, if you click View Form, you'll see a preview of all of the fields that exist in your online registration form. It'll come with a series of default fields. You can, of course, add additional fields from there. To create a new field, click Create Field down in the lower left, give the field a name, and then you have the choice of using an existing SchoolInsight student field or creating a custom online registration field. If you choose to use an existing field, you'll be able to select any field that already exists or any custom field that you've previously set up. Custom fields would be set up at Admin Main, Options, Configure Student Data. These custom fields are permanent and last from 1 year to the next. You can certainly set them to reset every year when the student is promoted into their next grade level. You can also set them that they don't reset so that you can retain that value year in and year out. This varies from using a custom online registration field in that you would give the field a name and then choose which type of field you'll be including. For my medical release information here, we're going to choose a true-false. You can assign a set of grade levels, a minimum and a maximum. So if this question only applies to certain students, for example, if it only applied to my grade school, I would say that it's good for kindergarten through 6. And then this field will only be shown to parents registering a student that fall within those grade levels. When choosing the sort order, you can choose where in the overall form it's going to appear. I'm going to choose that it's at the very bottom. And then choosing whether or not the question is optional means that if a parent doesn't have an answer or doesn't want to answer this information, they don't need to fill this in. For my medical release, I'm going to make sure that this is a mandatory field. When I'm all set with all of my information here, I'll save. And you'll see now down at the bottom of my list, collection of medical release information has been included at the end of the list. Any of the other existing fields can also be edited if you'd like to rename or show how they can be different. And you can say, please enter your birth date. And then when you save that, that exact text is what will be shown to a parent. Once you've worked your way through creating all of the forms that you'll need or all the fields that you'll need on your online registration form, the next item that we would be able to do is to create additional steps in your process. As you can see, I've already included a step that has the parents download and read the student handbook, but I can create an additional step from here. This step would be an instruction for the parent or guardian. It can be shown just to new students, students that have registered for the first time through that new student process we worked through a few minutes ago, just to returning students, so students that were not new this year, or to all students. The description is what will be shown to the parents when they are registering. Again, you can choose a minimum and a maximum grade level. So for example, if you need to have a updated physical sent in for any second graders, you can say that for all grades second through second, so all second graders, please attach the following file. If instead of an attached file, you'd like the parents to visit a website and read a document you've posted online, for example, if you've posted your student handbook or your medical release forms on your school's website, you can enter that website here. Tracking completion will track whether or not the parent has clicked on the link. It won't, of course, track whether or not they've read the material, but it will track whether or not they followed all the way through and downloaded the form. And then you can choose where on the overall process this falls. So if you'd like it to come after the form, but before reviewing the online, the parent manual, you can choose that here. Once you're all done setting up that field, you'll save. But as you can see, I've already got mine here. So my registration process is somewhat simple. I have my online form, I have my student handbook, and then I have parents paying registration fees. If you'll be collecting fees during part of your online registration, you'll need to set those fees up here. Back out on the online registration page, you'll go into registration fees. And in here, you'll see that I've already set up some fees for my school district. Creating a new registration fee by clicking on the button in the lower left here will give you a series of options. First, you'll need to give the fee a name. You can decide whether or not this fee is mandatory or optional. A mandatory fee will be charged to every student that falls within the criteria, for example, their grade level or their particular school. An optional fee allows parents to choose whether or not they want to pay this amount or pay a separate amount. And the difference being a fixed amount, this would be an example of a field trip fee that if the student chooses to go on the field trip, if they're a full paid student, they'll pay this amount. If they're a free student, they only pay the cost of admission into wherever the field trip is. If they're a reduced student, they may pay a reduced price. If they are direct certified for their lunch program, they may pay a similar price to the free. And if they are given a registration fee waiver, they may pay something in between. Instead, if a parent would be making a parent choice type fee, this allows parents to enter their own amount to charge. And an example of this would be something like a donation to the PTO Band Boosters Club, so that you can make a donation towards new musical instruments for the year. We're going to go back to our fixed amounts for our field trip fee. And then I can choose which school will be paying these fees. So if this was a field trip fee for just the elementary school, we can say that it belongs to the field trip account and it's for taking the students to the zoo. We can also say that at the high school, we're going to put this into the general account as a general fee. And at my junior high, I'm going to put this into the registration and fees account as a registration fee. Once I've chosen which schools and which accounts this fee should be charged towards, I can also choose which grade level this applies to. If every grade level goes on a field trip this year, and these are the fees that we would charge for it, we can select all of our grade levels. However, if only certain grade levels go, we can select them one at a time. I'm going to check all of my grade levels that apply, and then we will save our new fee. Now that we've created a brand new fee, it shows up here on field trips, any student that falls into any of these grade levels, so basically every grade level in my district, will be given the option of going on the field trip this year, and if so, they'll pay an amount based on their lunch program. Once we've set up our fees and we finish setting up our form, the next step would be to have the parents complete registration. Once we turn on online registration, and that's done individually for each school, even if you're managing at the district, you'll need to go over these school options. The first school option, use online registration. This is the master switch. It turns it on or off. The registration start and end date are for your registration window. If today's date falls outside this window, registration won't be shown to parents. It's considered closed. If today's date, the 10th, falls within this window, then registration will be available to parents. The option to force parents to complete online registration after login has 3 different settings. The first setting is that no option is shown to parents, and this is usually used for when you're testing your online registration form so that parents aren't seeing it yet. The second option, no but show them a message, will allow you to type in a message, such as please complete online registration for the upcoming 18-19 school year, and then we'll give the parents a link that they can click on to complete registration. The final option is yes, force parents to complete online registration. This prevents them from accessing any other part of the site while registration is active until they have completed their registration. And finally, the option to create parent newsfeed item. This will create an item in the parent newsfeed so that when they log in, they'll see that registration has been activated. So now if we jump back into our logged in parent, you'll see that I've chosen the middle option that shows an announcement across the top. The announcement, please complete online registration for the 2018-19 school year, and then a link to get to registration. Clicking on that link takes me to the beginning of online registration for young Joshua. If Joshua has a new sibling that will be joining us this year, we can click to register a new student to the district, and this will take the parent into adding a new member of their family. For today, we're going to continue registering an existing student. Since Joshua is an only child, we'll have one instance of all of this. We'll have a registration form that Joshua's parents will need to fill out, a copy of the student handbook, and finally some fees that will need to be paid. So we'll start off by completing the online registration form, and you can see that all of the existing information for Joshua is already in the system here. We'll say that he is definitely coming back next year, but that we have a change in address, that they've moved down the street. And then we'll move on to the next page. This is all of the custodial parents or guardians attached to Joshua. So we can say that the same change is made for both mom and dad. And in addition, dad has a new cell phone. We'll move on to emergency contacts. You can update any emergency contacts that are listed as a member of that child's family. You can add additional emergency contacts by clicking on the button at the bottom. However, you cannot update emergency contacts if they are also custodial parents of another child in the system. This neighbor of young Joshua happens to be father of another parent in my school, or of another student in my school, So we can't update his information. His information would have to be updated when he performs his own registration. Finally, we'll move on to the final step here. And of the new questions that we added, the only one that applied to Joshua was whether or not they were allowed to bring a new electronic device to school. And we'll say that yes, Josh is allowed to bring in his own iPad or tablet or something to work on assignments in class. When the parent has finished all of the available tabs and questions, they'll save their progress. And if you've chosen to add a digital signature, the signature box will pop up. The parent will need to sign their name and then submit the form. Once that step is complete, they'll be able to move on to the next step, which would be to download the student handbook. I'm going to skip that for right now. And finally, they can move on to paying their fees. When the parent clicks on Pay Fees, they will automatically be charged any mandatory fees. Their registration fee here is $100 for Joshua. They'll be given the option of paying any of the additional fees. So Josh is going to go on the field trip, and he needs a new gym uniform. Finally, at the bottom, when they've selected all their fees, they'll click Continue. And if you have enabled the ability to make online payments, the parent will be taken to a portal where they will be able to enter their credit card information and complete their fee. I don't have a credit card that I'd like to share with all of you this morning, so we're going to assume that they finish this part. And then we're going to go back into what an admin user will do once a parent has completed registration. So back here on the online registration page, we would go into student registration status, and we'll make sure we move over to the junior high, where Josh's parents just completed registration. So you'll see that Josh is my first student on the list here, and you'll see that his online registration form is awaiting review. He has, however, marked that he's returning. He hasn't paid his fees because I stopped just before doing that, and his registration is in process. We can view the process of Josh's registration on the right-hand side here. From here, we will be able to review the online registration form, and we can see that the parent has made some changes, so we'll need to review those changes before they get pushed into the system. On the right-hand side, if you click Review, you'll be presented by default with just the changes that are made. So we've made a change to Josh's mailing address. We've also made changes to Mom and Dad's mailing addresses. If we want to accept these changes, we can click Save and mark Reviewed. If we're not entirely sure if we're all the way done, we can click Save but Review again. Or if these changes don't make sense, if they entered an incorrect address or formatted it in a way that you're not happy with, you can click Reset, and then this will push the form back to the parents so that they will have to go in and fill it out again. I'm going to accept our changes for right now, and now the form is marked as completed and reviewed, so that we can see that Josh is almost all the way done. He hasn't read the student handbook yet, and we still have some fees that are outstanding. If the parent decides not to pay online because they'd prefer to come in and give you a check or pay in cash, you can edit any of these stages and say that the payment has been made and that they've read the handbook. And once you are done with that and save, the student registration is updated, and they are now marked that they have completed this step and that their payment is made. Make one more change here. We're going to mark their overall status as complete. And then now when you get back out here to the student registration status page, you'll see that young Josh is completed and the form has been reviewed. He is returning, his payments have been made, and his registration status is overall complete. During your registration window, you'll come into this page fairly often, and you'll be reviewing these one at a time to make sure that all students have entered their information, any sort of contact changes are made. And then once you have reviewed that form, all new changes will be pushed directly into the database, so we can see that Josh's new address, if we pull him up in Student Single View, has already been entered in for us. Additionally, his contact addresses have also been updated. The last item to talk about is the registration details report. So back on from main, under Modules and Tools to Online Registration, and in the far right side here, you would click on Registration Details. Inside here, you'll choose one of the schools within your district. I'll stay at my junior high for right now. You can choose to run for a single grade level or multiple grade levels. If you have groups set up inside your school, you can choose to run for a group as well. If you'd like to find just students that are returning, you can choose Yes here. You can look at just your new students, or you can look at families that haven't responded to this question yet. You can find families that have not made any contact yet, meaning they haven't clicked on the registration link or tried any registration yet. Families that are in the process of registration, so you know who you need to review and update, or families that have completed registration. You can check on the status of the form itself, how many forms have been completed and also reviewed by staff, how many have been completed but are waiting for staff to review, and how many are incomplete. And then finally, you can display this as a web page, as I will be doing right now, or you can export this information so that you can run reports on it later. When I generate this, you'll see that this is a list of all of my students, and then I'll get the information for whether or not they're returning, whether or not their registration is complete, and what the status is of their form. So that takes us through all of the setup and the process of registration, from the beginning of setting up our form, all the way through what parents will see when they are performing registration, and finishing with how administration staff will finalize registration when they're all done. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and you guys have a very nice day.